Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened your banking app? Not because you wanted to buy something, but because you were nervous? Not even about a big expense, just checking. Making sure nothing unexpected happened. Rent already gone. Groceries coming up, maybe a subscription you forgot about. You're not broke, but you don't feel safe either. That feeling, the constant low level tension around money, that's what most people live with every day. And almost nobody talks about the moment when that feeling finally starts to fade. Not when you get rich, not when you invest, but much earlier. For most people, it happens around one quiet, unremarkable number, $3,000. When people talk about money milestones, they usually jump straight to the big ones: 10,000, 100,000, a million. Those numbers sound impressive. They look good in thumbnails. They give you something to chase. But they skip over the most important phase, the part where your relationship with money actually changes. Because most financial stress doesn't come from not having enough money. It comes from money being fragile, from knowing that one bad week could knock everything over, from feeling like every decision matters too much, like every mistake has consequences you can't absorb. And when you're in that state, advice doesn't really help. Just invest. Just budget better. Just think long term. That's easy to say when money already feels stable, but when you're living close to the edge, you don't think long term. You think in survival mode. That's why so many people feel stuck. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they're bad with money, but because they're trying to build a future while constantly putting out fires. The $3,000 rule isn't about wealth. It's about when the fires stop controlling your decisions. $3,000 doesn't change your lifestyle. You're not upgrading your apartment. You're not buying a new car. You're probably not even telling anyone you have it. And that's exactly why it matters. Because $3,000 is usually the first time money stops being binary. Before that point, money feels like this: either you have enough or you don't. Bills paid or bills overdue. Food in the fridge or counting down until payday. Everything is yes or no. There's no cushion in between. But once you cross that $3,000 mark, something subtle shifts. Not on paper, in your nervous system. Suddenly, a flat tire isn't a crisis. A medical copay doesn't ruin your week. A slow paycheck doesn't immediately trigger panic. You're not celebrating, you're breathing. Psychologically, this is huge. When your brain knows there's a buffer, it stops scanning for danger all the time. You sleep a little better, you think a little slower, you don't react as quickly. And slower decisions are almost always better financial decisions. Before $3,000, every choice feels urgent. You take shifts you hate because you need the cash now. You buy cheap things that break because you can't afford the better option. You avoid changing jobs because missing one paycheck feels terrifying. After $3,000, urgency loosens its grip. You're not free, but you're not trapped either. That middle space is where progress actually starts. And here's the part most people don't expect. The stress reduction is bigger than the number itself. It's not the money, it's what the money represents. It represents margin, and margin changes behavior. This is where things get uncomfortable, because reaching $3,000 isn't technically hard math-wise. For many people, it's possible within a year, sometimes less. So why don't most people get there? Because every extra dollar feels like permission. Permission to relax, permission to spend, permission to reward yourself for surviving another stressful week. And that makes sense. When money has always been tight, saving feels unnatural, almost wrong. There's a voice that says, if I don't enjoy this now, when will I? And another voice that says, this probably won't last anyway. So the money disappears. Not recklessly, not irresponsibly, just quietly. A little more takeout, a nicer phone plan, a few small upgrades that feel justified, and then you're back where you started, still surviving, still tense, still one problem away from stress. The irony is that most people don't fail to build wealth. They fail to build stability. And without stability, everything else feels risky. Here's the realization that changes things. Money isn't just a tool for buying things, it's a tool for absorbing shock. Once you understand that, your priorities shift. You stop asking, what can I afford right now? And start asking, how fragile does this decision make my life? That question hits differently because buying something isn't just about price. It's about how much flexibility you're giving up. When you have $3,000 set aside, you're not trying to maximize pleasure. You're protecting calm, and calm is addictive. Calm changes how you show up at work, how you talk to family, how you think about your future. You don't need to escape your life as urgently. You don't fantasize as much about winning the lottery or quitting everything. You start making quieter plans, more realistic ones. And from there, everything else becomes easier. Saving more feels possible. Investing feels less scary. Taking calculated risks feels calculated, not desperate. That's the real shift. Not richer, more grounded. So what does the $3,000 rule look like in practice? It doesn't mean cutting joy out of your life. It doesn't mean extreme budgeting or living like a monk. It means deciding once that stability comes before optimization. It means treating that $3,000 like a line you don't cross casually, not because you're afraid to spend money, but because you respect what that buffer gives you. You don't rush it. You don't obsess over it. You just make small, consistent choices that point in that direction. Sometimes that's saying no. Sometimes that's delaying something by a month. Sometimes it's just not upgrading when you technically could. And when you hit that number, you don't stop, but you do pause. You notice how different things feel, how your chest isn't tight when an email from your landlord comes in, how checking your bank balance isn't a reflex anymore. That awareness matters because it reminds you that progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just quieter. Most people think financial peace starts when you have a lot of money. In reality, it starts when money stops controlling your mood. For many people, that happens around $3,000. Not because it's magical, but because it's enough to change how you experience everyday life. If you're not there yet, that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's just a direction. And if you are there, even quietly, even imperfectly, you're further along than you think. Progress doesn't look like perfection. It looks like fewer emergencies, fewer panic decisions, more space to think. And once you have that space, everything else becomes possible. Slowly, realistically, and on your own terms. That's the $3,000 rule, not a finish line. Just the moment where things finally stop feeling so heavy.